Some breaking news. The well-known and longtime leader of San Francisco's Glide Foundation has died. Reverend Cecil Williams died today at the age of 94. That's according to Glide.
He passed away in his San Francisco home, surrounded by family and friends. Williams was at the helm of Glide for 60 years. He was widely respected on the national level as a leader for civil and human rights. Mayor Lyndon Breed has already reacted to the news, calling Williams the conscience of our San Francisco community who spoke out against injustice.
That is so true in so many ways. We have all interviewed him many, many times over the years, and ABC 7 News reporter Leanne Melendez has as well. And what a time to reflect on a man who just had such gravitas.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Such charisma.
And he was a champion of all people in San Francisco and in the Bay Area,
Yeah,
really. He defended so many people and very active during the civil rights movement, and also a champion for those within the LGBT community. You know, and I remember going to his house several times, and we all remember the Thanksgiving days where we spend time with the unhoused people and people who just, he wouldn't even ask. He wouldn't ask, are you homeless, are you in need? They would just say, come on in. We welcome you with open arms. And that feeling, and it was not only, you know, Cecil, but also his wife who died recently, Janice, and I believe in 2021, if memory serves me correctly. They were both a team. You know, and they would welcome so many people, and people would gravitate towards them.
He had so many celebrity friends
Oprah,
and associates.
Yeah, Danielle Steele. I remember meeting Danielle Steele for the very first time because they both introduced me to
presidents would pay him a visit.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a very giving person, and also I remember him. He was very much part of when Patty Hearst was abducted. And if you remember, one of the conditions for her release, which really never happened until they were arrested later, the SLA, the Symbionese Liberation Army, but he was part of that giveaway. The condition of you know, the SLA was to feed the poor, and he was very much involved in that. So, I mean, just a champion for all people of San Francisco, regardless of who you were.
And always so kind, too, and just full of life and energy.
It feels like he's always been here, of course, but he was born in Texas and came here in the 60s, set down roots, and really took hold of the Tenderloin and really changed it. Can you talk about how he took it from a church, Glide, to really the largest social services agency in San Francisco, and one that is internationally known? Yeah,
well, like I said before, he was always about giving to the poor. That was his agenda. And so many people would say, well, you know, that person probably doesn't need shelter right now, and he would say, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to ask them whether or not they're worthy. I'm going to, right now, if it serves them, I will help them. And remember, you know, the homeless situation was not nearly what it is today. So he just followed what he believed in, which was to serve mankind.
There was always room in the tent.
Glide, and Glide, and the Tenderloin has always been a neighborhood where it has always served those who need the most help. And he was in the right place at the right time, always.
Can we talk about how he grew it to include so many different types of services? Because I think when people think of Glide, the first thing they think of is the Thanksgiving turkey meal.
Christmas.
Right, and the Christmas meal. But year-round, they do lots of different types of support. Can you talk about
They feed people every week.
They feed people every week. I think it's 3,000 meals.
Something like that.
I mean, it was just amazing amount of service that he provided. And it was about serving people, but not only him, but everybody. He built that community in the Tenderloin. And it was a matter of, let's build community. Let's, you know, help this other person, and let's come together and make the Tenderloin a better place.
And you know, the other thing, let's talk about this for a moment. We talked about his charisma and his sort of innate power in terms of power of personality.
Oh yeah, he was bigger than life.
He was bigger than life, and people wanted to be around him, and he used that for good works. He knew people wanted to be associated with Cecil Williams.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was because of his kindness, I think a lot of people felt that, well, I want to be near Cecil, and I want to be near Janice as well, his former wife who passed away. We want to give. And he was the instrument. Really, he was the leader. Well, how can I, because everybody here in San Francisco is so generous and people want to find ways to give, and Cecil was that powerhouse. I think he was the leader of the people when it came to serving
those
others.
Connections. He
Correct.
put people
he
together.
knew how to.
Yeah, yeah.
He knew he was very influential.
And can you talk about how, you know, at age 70, he had to step down as executive director because of the church rules, but he certainly kept himself busy in the last 20 years. In the last few years, what did he do, Leah?
He was always there. He was very active, and if he wasn't there, he would say, come to my house and I will, you know, serve you, whatever you need. And he did. The last time I interviewed him, he was already rather sick. We had to go to his house, but he was always there. He was always influential. He was a spiritual leader, always, and I think people always looked up to him and never felt like he was excluded. It's like, you are no longer here. No, I mean, his aura really dominated
the last time I interviewed
the church.
He was
Glide.
not sick yet. I mean, really declining, but he was a little bit older. And so I, for the first time, I saw him really with human frailty. Before that, he was so bigger than life. You know, he was unstoppable.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He was just unstoppable.
Especially you know, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and you know, he was really, like I said, a powerhouse. And yeah, I mean, we all become sort of more gentle, more sort of calming. But he still, you know, to me, was always such a powerful person, no matter what.
What a remarkable life well lived.
Yes.
Cecil Williams, dead at the age of 94. Rest in peace indeed. Thank you, Leanne.
We'll be right back.